Well, I suppose Africa Day to me, I haven't really given it much thought today, but just sort of off the cuff, I would say, you know, Africa is one of probably the most special places in the world. It's got many cultures, types of people, ethnicities. It's just the most incredible place to live, and there's so much vibrance and so much to experience throughout Africa and to celebrate that and to be a part of that is always a very special thing. And to call Africa home is probably one of the most amazing things. Now, Ferg, just be careful of the buffalo thorn, otherwise you're going to hate Africa this afternoon. But to me, it's just that there's just so much diversity, so many different kinds of people, so many characters, so many different cultures and religions and tribes and all of these things, and it all mixes into one, and it is some of the most incredible landscapes in the world. And to be able to, like I say, be a part of that and live that and feel all of that vibrancy is just one of the most incredible things. And I count myself very lucky to be part of Africa and to have grown up in Africa and live this every single day. What do you think, Ferg? Also?
Much agreed, eh?
Much agreed. So I think you speak to any person that comes from Africa and they'll all tell you that even though you can go outside of Africa and there's many things in Africa that are not ideal and things that we really, you know, we complain about and we worry about, and there's poverty and there's all these kind of things, but any person that you take out of Africa and you go and talk to them, there'll always be some part of them that will miss being part of this continent and being back home. There's something that is so special about this, and often we get guests, well, when I was guiding, I had guests that would come here and they say that it almost gets into your blood, and once it's in your blood, you just crave it every single time you go home, and you always want to come back again. And so for me, that sort of celebration of all of that, and then on top of that, the diversity in terms of wildlife that we have, and to be able to do the job that I do, and to be able to be out here and share all of this with you guys is just the biggest gift that anybody could give us. And so we are so fortunate to have this on our doorstep and to be able to live every single day where we're busy walking through an area, tracking lions and trying to find them and getting frustrated by mantids and stick insects that are invading us is quite a special thing. So, you know, it's to celebrate Africa is always a good thing, and I think just to have one day to celebrate it is really not enough. We need more than that, and I hope that everybody else out there that watches this and all of our staff and everything like that would also feel the same about it, because it is a magical place to live.
So what does Africa mean to me? Oh, it's so difficult to sum up. I agree with Tristan. Africa means home. Oh, let's not look at me for this, Craig. Let's look at the pretty view. I think it's much nicer than my face desperately trying to scrabble for words. Africa means home. Africa means freedom, space, unpredictability, chaos, beauty. Chaos and beauty side by side. And of course, I like all the animals as well. Lots of nice animals. No, it's hard to really sum up what Africa means to me. It's so vast, it's so huge. Certainly where I feel is home, certainly where I'm from. Disorganized, but beautifully so. Unsanitary, but again beautifully so. I use sanitary in the sort of the term of there's very little organization. There's no pattern. It's random. Well, I guess there are huge patterns, but it's random and chaotic. And sometimes it's hard, like the fact that there are only 6 goslings now instead of 8. So I guess there's brutality in Africa as well, in a way. Sadness. But sadness that's completely overshadowed by the happiness that it brings. Like the fact that in Africa, they'll stop traffic for a family of Egyptian geese crossing the road, which they did once years ago. When I was still in Johannesburg, I was driving through the city and I was listening to the radio, and a major highway, a major motorway was stopped because a family of Egyptian geese were walking across it. And everybody banded together to make sure that the traffic stopped. Everybody stopped their cars, taxi drivers, public transport, buses, and just general citizens. The Bambi effect. And Africa's about her people as well. It's not just about the animals. There are some truly amazing stories out there. I wonder what Africa means to these guys. Grass. Lots of grass. the occasional leopard to run away from. Okay, speaking of Africa, yeah.
Answer James's question, what does Africa mean to you? Well, I guess it's a dreadfully horrible cliche, but I guess Africa means home to me. It's where I was born, it's where I've grown up, and that means many, many different things. To say what does Africa mean to me, I could probably be sort of yakking away for about an hour on it. But it's conflicted, you know. It's a harsh place in many respects. It is, from a wilderness point of view, of course, I think it's probably unparalleled. It feels like we were born on the soil as a species, and it feels like we belong here in many ways. And so that's very strong when I come into these wilderness areas. That wonderful thing that I've shared with you before, that I heard from David White initially, and that he took from a North American elder, or North American Native American, sorry. He describes how there's that feeling in the wilderness where the wilderness will just as soon find you as it will kill you, just as soon feed you as it will kill you. It is not here to sort of care for us. And it's that feeling of, I don't know that words can sufficiently convey what that means to me, and how that completely describes how I feel about our wilderness areas, that they are in many respects harsh places, but they're unspeakably beautiful and feed us in innumerable ways at the same time. So that's what the wilderness areas mean to me. And then, of course, the countries of Africa are a legacy of enormous conflict. We cannot ignore the really appalling history that many of them have had, from colonialism and slavery to civil wars to genocide. But at the same time, the African people somehow just come out of it and survive and thrive and live and get on with life. And that speaks tremendously to the spirit of humanity in general, but of course of Africans themselves. And then, I mean, Seb, you're from Gabon, and what does it mean to you? Tell me if you can hear, Seb, otherwise I shall translate.
Africa means home, like you said. But it's, I don't know how to explain it. It's in your blood. It's you breathe it, you feel it, I can't imagine myself living anywhere else but Africa.
Well, that's it, you can't imagine living anywhere else but here. And it's funny, I'm about to go off to Italy next week for a little while. My parents and I, and my brother and sister, and various others, we're going off to, for a little soiree in Europe. And it's in a rural area. It's not wilderness, and I know what I'll feel there. I will feel a kind of exhalation of the tension that is inherent in being in Africa, and it will be a respite from it. But after a while I will miss it, and I will miss the just the sense of wildness that there is around here. And then, I mean, we could address it while Cornelius is asleep. Of course, I'm a white African, aren't I? And that brings with it all sorts of complications and difficulties and legacies. And what's she got? She thinks she's it's odd. Maybe we've just got a fly biting her. And that's a difficult one because, of course, we have a real trying history here, especially in South Africa, and so that's extra complication that we as white Africans have to deal with, and we must embrace. And so it's a complicated question to answer, but essentially it feels like home. It is home. It's not like we could live anywhere else, really.
The asked question to a lot of us who live our lives out in the wild is, what does Africa mean to you? And since it's Africa Day, Africa means a lot of things to me. It's sort of barefoot, feet in the sand, whether I'm sitting hiding from a tropical rainstorm in a Gabonese rainforest, or around a campfire in a cold winter's night in the South African Lowveld, or looking at a magnificent sunset in Kenya. The only thing that I can say Africa means to me is Africa is home.